Objective 1.
Everybody around the world.
Retro Video Gamer.
And welcome along to this great episode 2, series 2 of Retro Video Gamer from the retrovideogamer.co.uk forum. What have we got for you today? Well, we've got a Dendy review, the Great Russian Console, featuring Mr. Yak and Mr. Biffo. We've got the Retro Lama feature. Can you guess what the game is? We never mentioned what it is. We've got a great music review from 8-Bit Weapon, and I do have a ZX Tantrum. So why don't you just stay tuned and listen. This show's sponsored by nobody, so if you do want to come along and sponsor it, get in touch with us on the forums. Follow me at @othercarl, which is _other_carl, C-A-R-L.
Hey, round of applause, everyone. Lovely. Well, welcome to another episode of RVG Podcast. It's been so soon since we've done the last one, so I believe it's a Happy New Year to you, co-host Dan, Mr. Yak. Hello, how are you?
And a Happy New Christmas to you too, Mr. Carlos C. Mencia.
Oh, yes, Merry New Year. So, what's the best way to kick off the new year? By doing a podcast in late February. So, yes, it's been a little while, so I haven't forgotten our listeners. A lot of things going on. Plus, there's plenty out there to keep you going in the world of retro. So, if you really want to know about your Ataris and your Commodores and all that, there's plenty of people doing that already. So, we're going in with the unique RVG way, and we've got a lot of features and all that coming up in this episode. And we'll promise we won't leave it so long for you next time.
So, Paul Rose, Mr. Biffo, welcome to Play Expo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time out to chat to us on this podcast. Do you know what a Dendy is?
A Dendy?
A Dendy, D-E-N-D-Y.
No. Should I? A Dendy?
Well, it's the subject of today's podcast, the retrovideogamer.co.uk podcast.
Privyet, comrades. It's a brief historical account of the glorious computer system, Dendy. Just try for a second to imagine a society without Nintendo. Almost unthinkable. But in 90s Russia, this was a reality. A new reality, to be precise. In the absence of the otherwise ubiquitous Nintendo Entertainment System, Eastern Europe enjoyed Stiefler's unlicensed Taiwanese hardware clone known as the Dendy. Because Nintendo decided not to release their console to the Russian market, the nation was essentially free to pirate the NES to its heart's content. And man, did those Russians really enjoy their homebrewed grog. The Dendy hit the Russian market in 1992, costing 39,000 rubles, approximately $94. and it was a revelation defining Russian home video gaming in the mid-90s. Technically, the Dendy is a clone of the Nintendo Famicom, which makes it one of the earliest Famiclones. And since Nintendo couldn't give a stuff about what happened over in Ruskiland, there was nothing to stop other companies releasing clones upon clones of their very own. By 1994, the system was so popular that 2 further NES clones hit the rapidly growing Russian video game market: the Lamport Kanga and the R-Style Bitman. But neither even came close to toppling the Dendy juggernaut, which shifted in excess of 1 million units, earning Steepler over $18 million profit in the 1994 calendar year. Dendy was even popular enough for its own television series. Sponsored by Steepler, Dendy, the New Reality, ran from 1994 to 1996, and included features on the Dendy itself, the Sega Mega Drive, and, I quote, a joke version of the Game Boy which was as big as a wardrobe. There was also a 17-minute cartoon featuring mascot Dendy the Elephant, who packs his trunk and embarks upon a world tour in an attempt to, quote, make everybody in the world play Dendy. However, he's disappointed to find that the United States has already moved on to the Sony PlayStation and soon becomes a sub-minimum wage circus elephant in California. Sorry, I may have made that last bit up. But Dendy the Elephant, in all his incarnations, has a horrible squint, presumably from playing video games far too long. In the cartoon itself, it looks as though he hasn't slept for weeks. You can go and look it up on YouTube if you're feeling brave enough. When it comes to games, the Russian domestic market was positively bustling, comrade. The extensive Dendy library is a healthy mix of cloned Nintendo titles and homemade homebrews, hacks, and pirated ports. Har! Chief among them is Samari, full title Samari the Adventurer, the infamous pirate of Sonic the Hedgehog, starring Super Mario. Meanwhile, 99999999999 in 1 was just one of many multi-carts that actually only had about half a dozen games on them. You can also find 400 in 1 carts that actually do have a lot of games on them, maybe a couple of dozen, and if you're really lucky, they may include the very rare Bubble Bobble 2 and the wonderful TMNT Tournament Fighter. Super Contra 6 was a hack of Contraforce for the NES, released in 1994. The 4 playable characters are Rambo, Ryu, Bill, and Guile. And in true Dendy tradition, there actually exists a hack of this hack called X-Plan. Master Fighter 2, also known as Mario Fighter 3, was a Famicom version of Street Fighter 2, while Mario 16 was a hack of Joe and Mac. We can only guess what Mario's 4 to 15 might have been like. And then we have Chip and Dale 3, a hack of Heavy Barrel, featuring Fievel from Fievel Goes West, and Smokey Burr on the front cover. How can it not be the greatest game this side of the Kremlin? Perhaps the biggest compliment of all is that Dendy never really died. New Dendy systems are still available to buy in Russia, sporting the very same pack-in games as in 1992. Super Mario Bros., Aladdin, and the Mysterious Tank, which may or may not be a hack of Super Tank Simulator for the Amstrad CPC, but probably not. But more advanced consoles, licensed and unlicensed, eventually hit the Russian market, and Dendy 8-bit sales plummeted. Steepler went into bankruptcy in 1996. Andrei Andreev recalls, "The company had its own security service. Gangs did not take control of the company. In extreme cases, we had to apply to law enforcement agencies. For example, when his partner was kidnapped and demanded a ransom of $300,000. It had everything. A shootout, a chase, the ambush. Thank God, then, managed to rescue a comrade." Apologies for the fact that that last bit was translated from Russian. But it is clear enough, to me at least, that the Dendy story requires a Hollywood movie. Nay, a trilogy. До свидания, comrades.
The Dendy is a Russian clone of the Nintendo Entertainment System.
I do.
That was, it was the dominant system in the early 90s
I
in
was
Russia.
doing, funny enough, you just remind me of a feature that I've got in my drafts folder at home about Russian gaming. And yes, that's how I know the name.
Ah, right, so you did, after all, excellent. So more people know the Dendy than you think.
There we go.
And with that, it's thank you very much, Mr. Little.
Very good.
Cheers.
Very pleasure is what I was going to say. It's a very pleasure to be here.
Cheers. Thank you.
2K of RAM, twice as much as the ZX80.
You seem intent on attacking Clive Sinclair.
8K of ROM, again double what the Sinclair computer offers.
You're attacking him again.
And a proper integrated keyboard that won't give you arthritis.
You're attacking him again.
The Acorn Atom is the product that serious computer users have been waiting for.
You're attacking him again.
That's not personal, it's a vastly superior product.
You're attacking him again.
It's about computers, that's all.
You're attacking him again. You seem intent on attacking Clive Sinclair.
Proper integrated keyboard that won't give you arthritis.
What the fucking hell's all this about that?
Right?
You're attacking him again.
So today we just want to do a little bit of a catch-up really with things, and we're going to just do a little bit newsy. People say in podcasts, they say, "Oh, don't do anything newsy because it dates the podcast," but it's got to keep things a bit relevant, and we are always talking about things that are like 25, 35 years old anyway. So what I wanted to really do is talk to my good friend Mr. Yak here.
Hi.
Hello, Mr. Yak, yes. What I was really wanting to do was have a little chat with you about what sort of retro systems do you own and what sort of things would you like to see back?
Oh, Christ. Well, from memory, I definitely have 3 Sega Mega Drives. 1 is a Model 1, 2 are Model 2s, and what else do I have? I've got
3 Model 3s?
3 Model 3s, yes. I've got 1 Super Nintendo. I have no idea if it works. I bought it last Christmas, and I've never even tried it. I've got a Nintendo 64. That's the one I've played most recently. I've got PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and currently my brother has a PlayStation 3, which we swap between each other every so often.
So it's sort of like a Generation X retro console almost with the PlayStation 3. So when people listen to this in years to come, they won't believe that we're talking about a PlayStation 3 as something relatively current. There's a bit of historical bent for you there. So with the Mega Drives especially, you can pick up a lot of recreated Mega Drives and Family clones for the SNES, and they're all very sort of ubiquitous now. There's plenty about on the market. I don't know whether this is the right way to go with these systems. I'm basing my claim on that really because perhaps the more you see of something that was always had a special space in your own memories, the shine gets taken off of it. I'm thinking really about the latest ZX Spectrum things that have come on. We've got 2 products out on the market, and with the promise of a third one. And sometimes you wish everyone the best of luck and all that with these things, but you do wonder if going to Kickstarter and having all these things is really good for our retro addictions.
Well, if it makes money, it makes money. And if there are people that will buy it, then you might as well put it out.
Yeah, I agree with that. For sure. If they're going to bring something out, then it is going to have to be worth the £100 that they're asking for to do it. So let's have a look at some of the systems that are actually out at the moment. We've got the ZX Spectrum Vega that was released shortly before Christmas, which is available in a lot of retail outlets now. It's available in Argos. I've just typed it into the search engine before we did a bit of recording, and the dearest one is $119 on eBay, and you can get them on Zavvi.com at $87.99, and all other shops are like, that in between. So if I gave you £119, I'm sure you would toddle off and buy one, but would you do it out of your own £119?
Certainly not. I'll actually refer you back to last November, I think it was, when I was at Play Expo in Manchester, and I was looking around some of the stalls that they have there. It's like a convention, a video gaming convention. At one of the stalls, they had something called, what was it? Was it the Retro Duo? One of those emulated systems where it would have a slot for the Mega Drive games, would have a slot for your NES cartridges, a slot for Super Nintendo cartridges. It's like a Frankenstein's monster of different systems. So it's just one system that you could stick in the corner, put any system's games in it, plug it into your TV, the ultimate space saver. I was considering getting one of these. I looked at it for all of 5 seconds considering getting it. And then I never did because it was £110, which just so happens to be pretty much the same price as this Vega. Now, with the Vega, don't you get games with it, though?
Yeah, I think you get built-in games which are mapped to the buttons. You can plug it in and go. From my experience of what I've read on the internet as well, you can connect it up to a television and things, but it is wanting of a few contemporary connections, like it won't have an HDMI on it. It'll only have RCA or the phono plugs as we refer to them. I think this is probably because of the HDMI rights. To actually join the HDMI club, you have to put a fair few quid down. So you could understand perhaps why they didn't actually go along with that. But then on the other hand, if you're not going along with that, a plug-and-play system using phono plugs is going to be like the Capcom joystick and things like that, which have been sold in Argos in the past. You're looking at £15-20. So why charge £119 for something that should have an HDMI on it, at that price? So it's a bit of a shame. And then obviously when you look at other things that are available with HDMI on them, I'm thinking basically Raspberry Pi. Prices really range on that between sort of like $25 down to even $5 now for the new Pi, which is a tiny little thing, which over Christmas they'll give it away on the front of a magazine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that magazine is now completely rocking horse. To coin a phrase. So to build on the success of the Vega, what came up against it this year? I went into Maplins and saw the ZX Spectrum Bluetooth keyboard. So that was another thing that came up, and it was like, well, I mean, if you like your Spectrums like I do, all Christmases all came in at once. But again, something else that's coming in at around about the ton mark. It's a nice recreated Sinclair keyboard, but I think the rest of it then is then app driven. So it's really what your app's got on it, whether you're running Marvin or Speculator or something like that, and whether that's the way you've got to use that. You're buying a dog but having to bark yourself, Dan.
And also, what about the Retro Pi? Have you heard of the Retro Pi?
Yes, I tried building one actually. Yeah,
okay.
It's a bit of firmware you can have, and you just stick an SD card and jab it into the Pi, and it can more or less run as any old system that you like. I've got a USB joystick sitting here, and I've always been meaning to utilise it. But here's the thing: I went and bought an Amazon TV stick, and I shoved a Spectrum emulator on that.
Right.
And So that's £30 from Amazon. I think you can get them even cheaper if you're a part of Amazon Prime. So again, you know, the fox of the Vega and the ZX Spectrum Bluetooth keyboard is quite literally being shot every time something new comes out. So this is what I mean. It's like, the best way I can describe it is, it's like when your favourite singer comes out of retirement, but they've forgotten how to sing in the meantime, you know. They've had too many drugs. They're just making a fool of themselves out in the real world. Everyone's laughing at them on top of the pops. That's the way I feel about the Viva and the ZX Spectrum Bluetooth. I would want to buy one, but then I'd feel as if I've been mugged when I parted with my money. So that's one curmudgeonly point of view on those particular items. But, you know, where would it end? I mean, you see a lot of other ones now on the tech side where you can actually buy the boards. There's a ZX board where you can actually build the components and put that on. That's at £100, and that's well worth the money. That's got like a divide interface and everything, and a joystick port all built in, and it's a proper standalone ZX Spectrum. But they're not getting in the shop, Stan. They're not getting anywhere. It's just these other ones, these sort of like everyman consoles are getting in. And the other thing that came up as well is that when old Uncle Clive actually came up with these computers, the market he was in at the time, how much was the next cheapest computer? I don't know. You're probably looking at a lot of things that come in from the States. You're looking at a VIC-20 and things like that. And you're looking at, like, you know, over £400 for these systems. When Clive came in, he said, well, I just want anything created as cheap as possible. So it's a shame that they've recreated the Sinclair product, but not recreated the Sinclair ethos of getting a bit of elegance out there to people at the lowest possible price, because we know it's not the lowest possible price anymore, Dan. So that's why I was dying to talk to you today about those things.
Does Sir Clive Sinclair approve of such things? Plastic hunks that don't adhere to the classic Spectrum standards and ethics?
Well, I suppose you'd have to speak to his legal department about that, but I suspect that it's been, you know, a lot of things have been run past him that should be. I'm sure when Amstrad bought Sinclair out, they bought the Spectrum name, and I think they took the Sinclair name. I'm not sure where the Sinclair logo and all that actually landed. That would be down perhaps to some of our listeners to feedback in the forum about, because that'd be something I'd be interested to know, you know, the licensing issues, because the things that I've read on the forums about some of these things, I think with the Spectrum keyboard, is that there has been a lot of chat around who gets paid what dividend and what royalty, and will people get what's coming to them. So that would be an interesting thing to do. And then, you know, at the end of the day, you can get a lot of these tap files and all that online anyway. So it just seems, I don't know, it just seems it's too dear, it's too late, and all it's doing is, I don't know, I just feel it's embarrassing itself in the marketplace. So there you go. There's us not getting one to try out.
And on top of that, I have to say, the games are absolute crap, according to Mr. Biffo.
Of course, yes, because that was quite weird. I had a bit of confirmation bias come up because on his Digitizer 2000 blog, he's actually written about this because yet another thing's coming out. Are you sitting down, Dan? We have the Viva. The Viva, Mr. Biva's gone, Viva Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas.
I think Elvis is behind you there, Dan. Yeah, so, and that is the
gonna set my soul, gonna set my soul.
Very good. I like that. I like a bit of Viva Las Vegas.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Where is it?
You always do the hand movements as well when you do the Elvis impression. Oh, thank you very much.
I'll wiggle my ankle as if I'm trying to get my foot into a smaller shoe with the laces done up. So it's like I'm trying to put out a very hot cigarette.
Very, very, very authentic, yes.
Yes, so the team behind the Vega have released or looking to release a ZX Vega Plus. So anybody who's listening in black and white, it looks very similar to sort of like a GPX type style. There, I'm showing my age now, but sort of like a handheld PSP type thing. The concept looks very good. It's got an LCD screen on it, so you can play the games on the move. But, you know, are you going to play School Days on the move, Dan? Are you going to play Night Law with its interesting isometric controls when the joypad is going north, south, east, west, and you really need to hit the diagonals to jump over the block? All these buttons so close together, you know, how are you going to sort of like play the Hobbit on it? You know, it's just the things that I remember the Spectrum 4. It is not this. It was not pick up and go gaming. It was basically I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit like using a television to send emails. It wasn't really invented to do that. It was invented so you can watch terrible programming.
Yes, it's your portal into the past, isn't it? Yeah, I just find that there is obviously money to be made and dreams to be realised. And
dreams to be crushed. Dreams to be crushed. No!
Oh, no, I was being charitable to the Vega team to actually get it made and for it to become a reality. All credit to them. And I'm sure that they've been victims of committee. And like a camel is a horse made by committee. And I'm sure that a lot of these products that come out are concept that's made by committee, because all of a sudden the dreamer is no longer able to dream because the finance man has different dreams. And the compromise is that these things don't really work that well. I'm sure they did want HDMI on the original Vega, because people have got HDMI televisions and not necessarily anything else. But, you know, when they found out that membership, the HDMI club would perhaps wipe out their first 4 years' profit when they've promised lots in Kickstarter projects and Indiegogo and things like that, that's where the reality comes in. And it's just a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame.
Well, high definition sounds like far more hassle than it's worth, to be honest. Give me standard definition any day.
Well, on my arcade machine, I actually prefer the CRT on that than this new LCD screen I've got in, because the look's different. I think, you know, the luminescence that comes through the glass diffuses in a different way. But it might be because I'm just used to growing up with really crap, blotchy graphics. People like listening to vinyl. I like listening to vinyl because I did the review of the Data Discs Streets of Rage LP in the last episode. I realised how much I did love vinyl again. But it's older technology, isn't it? I guess it's what you grow up with.
Well, yeah, but also vinyl. As media gets newer, as technology advances, the actual media itself gets cleaner and cleaner. And we can see that in the music, hear that in the music, where the sound is cleaner and sharper. But I think it's that wanting to go back to the old days, to the dirtier days, when it was more thrown together. And, well, it seemed that way. It certainly wasn't, because people used to invest billions on trying to clean up the sound. But there was something so raw and earthy and dirty about the sound from a vinyl player.
And the smell of the record as well. It had that sort of vinyl, sort of dusty smell. A similar sort of smell that you have when you stick your head in the back of an old computer or an old arcade machine, that smell of oxidizing capacitors. It's just vinyl listeners will have their smell, and I guess that will stay with them as well.
Hi, I'm me. That's who I am. Today we're playing one of my favourite games. I just couldn't get the hang of playing it at first. I can't actually get the hang of this. I have to move to wherever you want. Oh my god. Okay, I think I got the graphics. PlayStation 1 graphics we're talking here. So we're talking top-down bird's eye view. I can't drive a car in this game. The graphics are alright. Graphics are terrible. But yet again, keep in mind that this was for the original PlayStation. A submachine gun. I'm gonna kill some people. The physics, I can't even get... Oh, I've got the hang of it now, but running, you have to actually just... Oh, you can... Okay. Turns out I can actually fire rockets at buildings and they'll catch on fire. I have heard that this actually Rose failed game called Race and Chase. It was originally a game where you go around robbing banks and racing, street racing and all that. And it had a really bad glitch in it that they couldn't fix. The cops on the game would actually ram you off the road, and they weren't supposed to do that. Well, this is actually really fast. I just died for some reason, but yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.
So why then Sinclair? Why did they get two products? You could say it's the following. I don't see any CPC things being sold in Argos. Z80 hardware, probably a marketing opportunity there as well. Don't see old Shugs trying to push them out. I mean, what is it with the Sinclair brand that he doesn't want to do with the Amstrad?
I think with the Amstrad, it was never ever a fashionable console. It was always the businessman's thing. It was a guy sat there in his business suit, in his boring tie, and he's spilled coffee all down his shirt. His stapler's there next to him, and he's ramming it like that because he's so bored at work. There was something about the Sinclair that was so very homely. It was small and compact, something that you could carry around and plug into a different monitor maybe. Whereas the Amstrad CPC is big and clunky, and it always comes, well, almost always comes packaged in with the big green screen monitor. It's business. It's not gaming. It's not cool. The Amstrad CPC was never, ever cool. Alan Sugar was never cool. I mean, he is now. It's a bit different, isn't it, because he's on The Apprentice. But I was never cool. I was always on the outside. Know what I mean?
He was always on the outside trying to get in the club, and the club wouldn't have him.
Yes.
Yeah. So he set up Vigeland instead.
And what happened to them?
Did I get swallowed up by Compaq in the end? I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. One of my hobbies, as everyone knows, is being wrong on the internet, but there's only so much wrong I can handle in one podcast, so I'm going to steer clear of that one, definitely.
That makes two.
Yes, that's right. Never been wrong before, so it's a first. So, yeah, okay, that's a really good reason for the Amstrad. So let's pick on the Commodore 64 now. I don't see a Commodore 64 for about that, although they did have the joystick a few years back. But I do know with the Commodore, there's about 4 or 5 different Commodore brands running. So depending on where you were in the world when the Empire demised, that's the indicator of who has what, because with the Commodore, I think they did a Commodore Netscape sort of type computer, which I had for a little while, which was an awful thing. It was like a 386 computer with the Commodore logo on. Then a different Commodore brought out the Commodore joystick, and I think there's been talk of a Commodore Android mobile phone that's been much mooted, and I think that is actually in dispute between Commodore Italy and Commodore UK. E&OE there, errors and omissions accepted. So there's a lot of problems with a Commodore getting out there because whose Commodore is it anyway would be the banshee call of the lawyers from all around the world. And it'd be no different to how Commodore actually started, with a lot of lawsuits going on, suing their own employees when they left to start other things. In a way, it's never really stopped for them. But did you ever have any experience of the Commodore little joystick? It looked like a zip stick. It had the phonos coming out of it, but it had the phonos out of it because the HDMI standard wasn't established then. Also, it wasn't pitched at 110 quid, but I'm not going to keep going on about that. I don't know if anyone's got one anymore. I think the last time I saw them, I was sold at a thrift store for about £15-20.
Do these come pre-packaged with games?
Yeah, so you'd have a couple of US Gold games in there. I think you'd have... Well, what they did, you see, they put summer games and winter games on there, and they marketed to that as at least 16 games because of the events. They counted each event as a game.
Oh, swines! Those flipping 9999999 in one cartridges. There's actually only 2 games on there, but there's just Tetris level 1 to level 99999.
Then you got the B model that multiplies it by 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, I think we're onto something there. Shh! Don't tell anyone. You know, I never actually played it myself. Wish I got my hands on one. I think there's mixed reviews about that. Atari Flashback, obviously, there's been a couple of types of that. There's been the joystick and the little mini console. There's always been a few rights issues with that. I don't think the Atari name that was released in those Flashback things was the same as the Atari making the consoles back in the day. But then, you know, you are talking about a 30-year hiatus between manufacturing and things like that. So they could be forgiven. So I think throughout my little preamble here, I'm sort of discovering that actually, perhaps although I'm unfairly picking on the Sinclair, it's only the latest kid on the block when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yes, and I think this will continue forever and ever as long as there is an audience, because these games are classic. They're wonderful games. Jet Set Willy, etc. I can't think of any more right now because I wasn't a Spectrum owner, but I'm sure there are hundreds more.
And on, 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 and very strong, and on, and on, and on, and on, and on. and on and on and Ariston and on and on and on and Ariston.
And no matter what Mr. Biffo says, I'm sure there are some really, really good games in there. I mean, throw 1,000 monkeys in a room, you're eventually going to get one or two that can type Shakespeare or something.
Or play 3D Death Chase.
Yes.
Which is a really good one. My favourites are Death Chase, which I only started playing when I stopped owning a Spectrum because I could play it online. There's your another problem there, isn't it, really? These are sort of like coffee break games. They're not really ones to be sort of like sitting at the barbers getting your hair cut and playing a Jet Set video or anything.
Gaming.
Yes, casual gaming for the casual gamer. Okay, you can put a £5 each way on the next one to come out.
Okay.
Okay. Where's your money going?
I'm actually going to go, despite what I've just said about Mr. Alan Sugar. I'm just so curious to see it now. I want to see an Amstrad CPC 464 emulator. Just because it's never been done, and I'd like to see somebody completely fail with a Kickstarter on it.
You mean as a solid state bit of kit to have and to hold? Plenty of emulators. You've had Arnold. That's
my emulator. That's my emulator that I developed myself here in Austria, the California branch of Austria.
That's brilliant. No, that's really good. That's staying in. So yeah, you got Arnold, and then you've got Danny DeVito, obviously, which is another one. Now, I'm looking at the concept product of the Amstrad one, so it's got to be like 3 times as unnecessarily long as anything else on the market. So your controller and your buttons have got to be like at least 1 metre apart, so you're holding it like a big goose.
Yes, and it's got to have a green screen mode, and that's the only mode you get.
Yeah, as standard. Yeah, all to play Roland in the Caves, which I believe is absolutely brilliant game. You played Roland in the Caves because I think you were talking about you were late to the Amstrad and that was one of your favourite games, wasn't it? Roland in the Caves?
Roland, yes, because I had very, very few games for the Amstrad CPC. When I actually got my CPC, which was a hand-me-down, in the early 90s, it was one of the games that I played the most. But that was only because those games came free with the system. So you've got stuff like Roland on the Ropes, Roland on the Ropes, Roland in the Caves, Roland in Space, Roland Goes Square Bashing, and none of them have anything to do with a guy called Roland. Because one of them stars a flea, one of them stars a guy who might be Roland, but actually I think his name is Fred, because that's what he's called on the Commodore version, or the Spectrum version.
Was there one where he was drunk and you had to get him back, or am I thinking of a different game? That was on a Commodore, I can't remember that one. And you had to dodge the pink elephants and all that. Was that not a Roland game as well? I can't remember now.
I wish it were, because I would have played it forever.
Oh, that's got me thinking now. It was one of them games that looked really good at the time because that's all you knew. So I'd probably break it out now and go, gosh, what's for dinner? So, yeah. So, okay. So how much did I give you to place your bet? Was that a £5 each way, wasn't it?
Yes, £5 each way. So I'm going to go with an Amstrad CPC solid state system, complete with a joystick that snaps after 20 seconds. Shout out to the JY2.
Yes, and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to put it elsewhere, Dan. I'm actually going to go for the Atari ST.
Ah, I see.
Because it's an evolution of things, isn't it? I mean, we spoke about the TV Boy not too long ago, last year, and that was a handheld sort of system that was downgraded technologically and made available a lot cheaper. We're now talking about a lot of 8-bit systems, so, you know, why not? Why aren't there the 16-bit ones now? I mean, we must have moved along in evolution now for Moore's law to dictate that this gear, well, we do know you can get something as powerful as a mini PC for $5, for Pete's sake, so why aren't there people launching the Amiga or the Atari ST little handheld things? Why?
Maybe they will now you've mentioned it. They'll go out and do it. They'll say, oh, that Carlos chap, he knows what he's talking about. He's correct. Let's go and make these systems now.
Yeah, said absolutely nobody. Yes, but that's what I'm thinking next, because as Generation Xers, we're going to give away to the Y generation people now, and it's been millennial gamers. That's the next big thing. We've got retro gamers now, and that will stick with us. I mean, a millennial gamer will be like people slightly younger than us to my children, who it's just completely irrelevant to them, this scene, and they'll be playing something newer. I mean, to them, a 386 or a 486 PC is going to be their Atari 2600. And that's the way people are going to carry on making money out of this as well.
I wouldn't be so sure about that, because I can foresee maybe even 10 years in the future, everything will be centralized. So there'll be no real distinction between retro games and current games, I believe, apart from, say, the graphics. Because a good game is a good game. And if you show a 5-year-old Super Mario Brothers and compare it to, say, Skyrim, they're going to know there's obviously a graphical difference, but the type of fun that you get from it can be equal in a different way. So if we jump forward 15, maybe 20 years into the future, I can foresee a centralized gaming thing, an entity like an internet, and everybody accesses the same pool of games. They may be from the Super Nintendo, the Atari 2600, arcade, MAME, even going further back to the Magnavox, etc. And they will sit alongside the PlayStation 10s and the Xbox 9 millions and what have you. I believe that, yes, all games will be created equal. I have a dream.
I've got a special guest here, Martin Luther of the Retro Games. Yeah. So, yeah, I get that. So we're basically going to be in a world of thin clients, and everything goes up to the cloud, and they'll just feed us our stuff. Yeah, that's what you were saying, how everything's going to be centralized, and we just pay for what we use. A bit utilitarian retro gaming, maybe, and no distinction between what's retro and what's current, for sure. But I'm very much like holding it, looking at it.
Hello everyone, welcome to the RVG Music Review. We have plenty to thank Robert Bob Yans for. If you don't already know, he was the chap who conceived and made the SID chip from MOS Technologies. We roll along at least another 35 odd years, and we're still enjoying the fruits of the labour of the SID chip today, because today we are listening to 8-Bit Weapons' brand new album, Disassembly Language Ambient Music for Deprogramming Volume 1. So the album is a new chip music concept album. It's a collection of ambient music crafted to help facilitate relaxation. The album lasts for over an hour, and it's got mind defragmenting tones for you to enjoy. Very good choice of words there, because as you do listen to it, you feel like you're going to sit down to Blade Runner. You feel like you're sitting in the city there, and something's about to happen. It's very relaxing. The sounds are all made from the Commodore 64 computer sound chip. So there you go, Bob. If you're listening somewhere, this is all your work as well as Michelle and Seth's. A lot of the album was written by the computer, because notes were actually generated randomly by the CPU. So there's at least, how many tracks we got? We got 4 tracks on here. Phase 1 lexical analysis, Phase 2 debugger, Phase 3 refactoring, and Phase 4 release. This is, I think we're going into the 20 or the 21st release by 8-Bit Weapon. I've been following them from afar. I've been following them on Facebook for a long time. I've very much enjoyed all their music, and this one is no exception. It's very, very nice, very moody, and it would certainly take pride of place in my collection, as I'm a big fan of the Orb, and I like a nice bit of ambient music as well. Some early Chemical Brothers in there, and some of the sounds that are generated by the SID chip in later tracks are actually reminiscent of the early New Wave as well, and a little bit of Gary Newman. So overall, it's an absolutely brilliant album to listen to, and I'm hoping that it will be an album for people to buy. So where can you get this album from? Well, I suggest you visit 8bitweapon.com and go there and click the link to buy it there. You can also listen to some of the tracks so you can try before you buy, but it's a great musical movement to follow as well. I really rate the album very highly. So I hope you can then go along from this, go and visit 8bitweapon.com and go on and relax and enjoy.
One thing that I really haven't touched on is that the fact that when I do get my retro systems up and running, the last thing I really do with them now is play games. I tend to photograph them running, then post a tweet about them and look for validation of my actions on Twitter. But when I've thrown that pebble in the sea and nothing comes back, the thing that I like to do is actually play demos on them, and actually see what people are doing now on these older computers. And what they're doing now with the Vega and things like that, it's going to be a walled garden. It's going to be, you're only allowed to play things from that time. People can't stretch these things. I believe they can't. I hope I'm wrong for the first time ever, but obviously. But, I hope people are able to stretch these new things out if that's what we're meant to do, because they can't charge us all this money and then say, oh, and by the way, there's no provision for you to run demos and things like that on them and program demos on them. I'm pretty sure you can't program a demo on it. I'm pretty sure you'll have to either use a PC or the original hardware. New is less, I think, is the phrase that I'm trying to pluck out the air.
I think people will always find a way to hack these things. Going into a completely different medium, for example, teletext. In the olden days, it was the sole domain of corporations like the BBC. But now it's transferred into the hands of the general public because the technology has become available for everybody to use. So I believe the same is going to be true of current consoles. I'd like to go back actually to something you mentioned earlier as well, about you like to view your systems as museum pieces in a way. It's more the physical aspect. And I believe that's because in the olden days, back in my day, back in the 80s, back in the olden days, the physical look of a system was much, much more important, I believe, than it is now. We've got the people who are ripping into the current Xbox console because it looks like a VCR. Well, that's just proof, isn't it, that these companies just don't care what it looks like anymore. It can be a great hunking box. It literally is a box with an X on it. Oh, it's called Xbox. Oh, we better make it a box with an X on it. They don't really care, but they know people don't really care what it looks like anymore. It's about what it does. Whereas in the olden days, you would go to the shops and buy it. It would be this big fetishized thing that you bring it home and you put it there and stick it under the Christmas tree or whatever and say, look at that, I'm going to get that for Christmas and I'm going to play on it. Oh, it's going to be brilliant.
So you're saying that the more modern things they get less elegant. I would say that's because you don't really have to use the box itself. I mean, there's no keyboard on it. The box included the keyboard, and obviously you needed the ports and all that in the back. But now everything's handled through a button controller. It's actually the controller that's become the elegant thing, hasn't it? You look at the evolution of controllers all through the history of games consoles, and you get from one box on the Magnavox Odyssey with something that looks like a volume control on the side, which is your analog rotor, up to the Atari little sex toy joystick. Now you're going on to ergonomically designed. You can use 6 buttons with 2 fingers. And so you could say that as time's progressed, the box has become less useful, but the mediums that are plugged into it have become more vital. So I'd agree with that 100% there, Dan. I think that's, 10 points to you on that one, I think, definitely.
I win! I've won something! Yay! Amazing.
Well, that's about time for us to put the lid on another RVG little unkit, put it in its Tupperware box, upload it to the stratosphere where everyone on the Astronet will be listening again. So big hellos to everybody that follows us on Twitter, a big hello to everybody that says hello to us on the forum as well. If you've got any ideas, as ever, always pop them into us. And obviously thanks to our contributors today, which is Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Hi, thank you.
Obviously, we're always on the lookout for any new ideas and all that we want to put in. And thanks very much this episode as well, 8-Bit Weapon, for their brand new EP Phase 2 debugger, which we've reviewed in this. Thanks very much to Mr. Z, who did the Retro Lamer feature. And we hope to see you all again. And with that, I'll leave it. Join me and Dan again for the next one that we do. And remember that we do some other bits and pieces as well out there in internet land. We're very passionate about our teletext. So if you do get a moment, pop in and see us at the Teletexter Facebook group on Facebook, obviously. And also, when you get a moment, why not listen to our lovely podcast as well, where we say more or less the same things, but we dress it up in a slightly different way. So until next time, cheerio.
Sayonara.
Sayonara. Oh, that's good, actually. You've been celebrating Chinese New Year, haven't you?
This is the RVG podcast.